Welcome back to another episode of the Get Back Coach, presented by Apollo Media. Week 1 in the books. Some of us are ecstatic, others are not so happy, unfortunately. But week 1 definitely lived up to the hype. Great kickoff for college football, but it did not start on Saturday. It started Thursday night. Great game between North Carolina as they take the trip to Minneapolis, Minnesota to take on the Golden Gophers. North Carolina prevails 19-17. Gophers miss a walk-off field goal. Jay, this one was a bit sloppy.
It was a sloppy game. It was enjoyable, but sloppy. I think we expected that a little bit. Obviously, North Carolina going to take a little bit of a step back offensively with no Drake May, and Minnesota is the identity of the program, right? Like they're a defensive team under PJ Fleck. They kind of have been since he got there, and really historically, right? Like it's not just a PJ Fleck thing. That's just who Minnesota is as a program. Minnesota had chances. It kind of felt like nobody wanted to win this one at times. There's a lot of mistakes, like you said, sloppy game. And the Gophers missed that walk-off field goal. Concern at North Carolina is going to be the injury to Max Johnson. Going to be interesting to see how they fare with that going forward. But yeah, sloppy game. Kind of what you expect from a Thursday night kickoff in Minnesota. I seem to recall a certain young quarterback struggling in the rain on a Thursday night to kick off the season. I believe that was C.J. Stroud making his college debut at Minnesota.
Yep.
So it's not unheard of for games to be sloppy there in Minneapolis to kick off the season. There's a little football knowledge for you on this recording day.
Yeah, exactly. And Max Johnson, season-ending leg injury. You just hate to see that. A guy who's really had some tough luck out there in college football. We don't know if we're going to be able to, we're going to see him again. Jacoby Criswell is the backup coming in. I believe he was Mr. Tennessee. And he did enough to win this game. Yes, Minnesota had chances, but like Criswell goes in and moves the football and, gets it done for the Tar Heels. The thing with Minnesota, by the way, this is the only team that lost for the Big Ten all weekend. They ruined the Big Ten's perfect 18-0. Listen, Minnesota
18 is a wild number to talk about a conference. Sorry.
Yeah, 18 teams, 18 teams for the Big Ten. It makes total sense. They should just say Big 18. But anyway, Minnesota, like you said, Jay, this is like their identity. Usually good in the trenches. Good defense, scrappy team. They have a lot of production coming back. I think it was like at 78% type of production. But listen, North Carolina, you could see there is a difference in athletes, though, especially on offense. North Carolina had better athletes, made bigger plays, and then it comes down to the last second field goal, and it was missed. And salt on the wound. This is in total Minnesota fashion, not just Gophers, but even Minnesota sports in general. The fireworks go off as they missed the field goal to make it even worse. But that was really the big kickoff game on Thursday. Oh, wait. No, it wasn't. There was also North Dakota State at Colorado, the FCS Blue Blood versus Dion. And Colorado comes out on top towards the end, 31-26. Jay, thoughts on both teams here, because you are our FCS expert.
Bison versus Buffaloes. I love that. I love that was the mascot matchup there. But this game kind of played out how we thought, right? Like it was the trenches of North Dakota State against the skill positions of Colorado. North Dakota State was able to pressure Shedeur Sanders a lot, which doesn't bode well for Colorado the rest of the season. I will say that I think Colorado did a little bit better job against the run than I expected. Mm-hmm. I think they did try to make North Dakota State beat them through the air through loading up the box, which, to be fair, North Dakota State had some success with. But yes, Travis Hunter is probably one of, if not the best players in the nation. I don't think you can dispute that. I mean, just both ways. an incredible player. North Dakota State hung in there. They were tough. At the end of the game, I think Colorado had a chance to run out the clock, and they're throwing the ball, which was wild to see. Terrible game management, in my humble opinion. But I mean, I think that's kind of the story of Colorado, right? Like, they do some things that's just highly questionable at times. I think on Colorado's game-winning drive, there was a pass interference call at one point that was, a little bit questionable in my mind.
Mhm.
But I mean, again, like, you can't just blame it on the refs. I think Colorado was the better team, deserved to win that game. At the end of the day, just a few more Jimmies and Joes than North Dakota State had.
Yeah, exactly. And, after that game, Dion was asked about it, and his response didn't make any sense. He was like, you still got to get a first down. But okay, you're talking about it's risk versus reward. Okay. I understand going for the throat. However, if you miss it, there's still, a minute 30 to go, and giving another opportunity. Whereas if you run the football, make them burn a timeout, you run the football again, and now they're down to 30 seconds and you punt. Now they have, what do they have? Like a minute 30 left in the game. Like, they had a substantial amount of time. Just questionable decision there. Travis Hunter is really good. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think Shedeur Sanders is a very good football player. I really do. I am questioning his ability to hit guys before they are open. Okay. I'm talking out routes. I'm talking choice routes. I'm talking digs. I feel like he just waits way too long.
He doesn't throw guys open.
No. And when you are going to take on good defenses, you're not going to be able to sit back there all day long. And again, credit to Colorado's offensive line, who kind of rose to the challenge a bit and kind of gave him the protection, a decent amount of protection.
At least better than last year, for sure.
At least better than last year. But he is not going to be able to do that. You've got to throw guys open. And I think that might be a story for next week, a storyline for next week.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to watch against, and we'll get into that game a little bit later. But
we definitely will.
It's going to be a fun one. Moving on to Saturday, we had Clemson and Georgia just kicked the ever-loving shit out of Clemson to the extent that I didn't expect. It was a close game at half, to be fair. I think it was 6-0, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 6-0. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 6-0.
And then Georgia just made adjustments in the second half and kind of ran away. Again, stop playing neutral site games.
Yes. I want to add something here. And I know Dabo, deservingly so, gets criticism for not taking advantage of the portal. Okay. I don't think there was anything that transfer portal could have done to save them from that ass whooping that they got from Georgia.
No, not in this scenario.
No.
Maybe there's some adjustments in coaching style that deserve more criticism that we haven't talked about. But I don't think it's the portal in this case, because I just think Georgia's that good.
Yeah. Do you think Clemson, this is an indication of Clemson not being a quote unquote good team? Like, where do you see them stacking up ranking wise with the rest of the country?
I think Clemson's still a good team. I just think Georgia's an elite team.
Yeah.
And I think that difference, that line, there's a clear demarcation between like the Georgias, the Ohio States of the world right now, and then the rest of the field.
Right.
And I think that it's more a testament to what Georgia is than it is a knock on Clemson. I think Georgia's just that good. And I think Clemson, they had the misfortune of being the first game on the calendar when Georgia was never going to overlook them.
Right.
Like, this was always going to be a hyped matchup, and Georgia was going to have their A game. So I still think Clemson has a very good chance to win the ACC, especially with the ACC not looking great.
No.
In week one.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm not hitting the panic button here.
No, I don't think you hit the panic button. The ACC is wide open. Florida State took a loss in week 0. We're going to talk about a game of another team that we thought was a sleeper get beat by a bottom feeding SEC team that we're going to again talk about in a second. But Jay, and this is the last question I have before we move on, is Dabo's seat warm right now?
I don't think it's warm yet. I think it could warm up depending on how Clemson responds the rest of the season. But again, I think this boiled down more to Georgia just being that good. And, the fact that Dabo has led Clemson to national titles is going to keep that seat from being warm unless there's just an all-time collapse.
Yeah.
And I don't see that happening for Clemson. I still think they win 10 games this year. So I would not say that he has a warm seat.
Yeah, very easily can win 9 to 10. I think I had him at 9-3, but they can very easily get 10 wins. And we talked about this because I don't think any of us thought Clemson was going to win this football game regardless. So you have a wake up call. Maybe Dabo can kind of rally the troops and get them ready for ACC play. And Jay, I don't think this is happening by any stretch of the imagination, but how much does this game really matter for Clemson?
I mean, it matters just from a standpoint of football. But I think long term, everything's still in front of them. So from that standpoint, I don't think it matters all that much. You still have a chance to go to the playoff. You still have a chance to be the ACC champion.
Yep.
Again, as long as you respond accordingly, this one won't be. But if you dwell on this loss and you say, well, clearly we're not, going to be a world beater, then they could be problematic. But to my mind, I don't think this matters too much as long as Clemson responds.
No, I agree. And now to talk about another ACC team that really took their lumps, Jay, this was really disheartening for me because this was kind of my sleeper for possible, ACC champ. Virginia Tech loses to Vandy in Nashville, 34-27 in overtime. Diego is a Pavia, right?
Pavia, I think.
Pavia. Is it Pavia? Dude, absolutely electric. Virginia Tech, and this is a defense-led team. Head coach Brent Pry, great defensive mind, did not have an answer for Diego Pavia. Did not have an answer. And this, you want to talk about great portal gets? Diego Pavia has a chance to single-handedly turn around Vandy.
Yeah, he does, and he's always been a gamer. I know Hugh Freeze is just so upset right now that Auburn has to play Vanderbilt, and he has to see Diego Pavia once again after Pavia beat him at both Liberty and Auburn. But yeah, this was a surprise, right? And you expected Vanderbilt to be somewhat better than last year, just because last year was a horrible year for the Commodores. But I don't think any of us saw this one coming. Again, you had Virginia Tech as an ACC sleeper. I have NC State, who also struggled, but came away with a win in week 1. But yeah, I mean, this is a statement win for Vanderbilt. This gives them a real chance to look at bowl eligibility moving forward, especially if Pavia continues to carry this offense. So it's a shock. Virginia Tech has to regroup because I don't think the loss was on their radar at all.
No.
Going to be interesting to see how they respond going forward. Just like Clemson, right? It depends on how they respond from here. Still a lot of football left.
Exactly. Still a lot of football left, and they can adjust. Again, I rooted against Virginia Tech my entire life. I had a cousin who played for Virginia Tech, and I still root against them. And man, I just have such a connection to Brent Pry, and I hope he does better. I hope he turns it around. But if they tank this year, things are not going to be things aren't going to be happy in Hokie land. And on top of it, I know we don't talk recruiting here, but or at least too much. They just lost a 4-star receiver today as well. That was their big time recruit. So things are not good in Hokie land at the moment. Now we get to talk about my main focus. And Jay, I have to admit, I could I could not eat before this game. I was very nervous. I was real nervous. I'm like, I was starting to believe like that because I heard all week West Virginia. And like, I know West Virginia better than most people. And I'm like looking at the teams, I'm like, I mean, there's no way Penn State can lose this game, right? But then I start listening to everyone else, and half a college game day, half of Big Ten or Big Noon, picking against them. As 7.5 point favorites on the road. I was real nervous for this game, and like I said before on this pod, and like I said on the Ryan and Rush show, if you guys saw that, the more this game got closer, the more I felt this was going to turn out like Auburn. And it kind of did. Big turnover in the beginning of the game. Penn State regroups, and then they just kind of handle them. Andy Koltanicki passed the first test with flying colors. Offensive coordinator Andy Koltanicki. Listen, Drew Aller looked more comfortable. He was able to feel the pocket a little bit more. He played a little bit of edge. He's talking a little trash after he stiff arms Jeremiah Trotter. And 12.6 yards per attempt. And the big thing here, Jay, last year, Penn State had 8 plays that went over 40 yards. They had 8 all of last year. They had 4 in this game alone.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. Harrison Wallace seems to be the breakout receiver. And the only critique I have is I think Aller is focusing too much on Harrison Wallace, and I hope he doesn't get into a habit of just relying on one man. But yeah.
Listen, relying on one man can get the job done. I mean, we saw with Arizona against New Mexico how McMillan took over that game for Fifita. But yeah, it's this was a very good Penn State team. Looked balanced as well. They got some stuff going in the run game with Singleton and Allen. I thought this was a very impressive performance. And I thought the defense looked incredible as well. I thought they, kind of suffocated the rushing attack that I had talked about. Donaldson couldn't get anything going at all. White has a few good runs against Penn State, just as a shiftier back. But again, like overall, Penn State did a great job defensively. Green couldn't get anything going with his feet. So I think if you're a Penn State fan, you have to be pretty excited about how this team looked. Again, Coach K up there, the offensive coordinator, was brought in to really shake up the offense and bring some excitement. He brought some wrinkles into the game, and I think he succeeded on all counts. We know West Virginia doesn't have the best secondary, so it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of keep that success offensively up throughout the season. But I think you have to be excited if you're a Penn State fan.
Yeah, and let's talk about West Virginia for a second. I was disappointed in the Mountaineers a little in the late third, fourth quarter. Like it kind of looked like they were like no moss here, and kind of Neil Brown kind of alluded to that, which I think was a little disheartening. Granted, there was a 2-hour rain delay or lightning delay, and some of the fans left, which again disheartening. But like, hey. I can't blame him too much sitting under a concrete grandstand like that. But I'll say this about Penn State, and Jay, you had made a good point. Penn State did a good job with the run game. I think West Virginia only had 85 yards rushing. And I was disappointed originally with Penn State's defensive line, or at least their defensive ends, because I think they had only 2 sacks. I thought they get more pressure. Want your defensive ends flying upfield trying to pass rush against Garrett Green? No,
you don't. No. You want to play more of a contained game, and I think that's what Penn State's game plan was against somebody who has a tendency to scramble like Garrett Green. And I think they did a good job. And again, Green wasn't able to create as many plays with his legs, and so you didn't have those kind of busted play type long passes down the field. There was a couple times where Green hit his receiver, but again, like overall, supremely good defensive performance by Penn State.
Yep. Listen, West Virginia, you know who killed Penn State the most at receiver? Cole Clement and Preston Fox.
Fox. Find the Fox.
The West Virginia boys, man. The two West Virginia boys. Listen, I coached against Preston Fox, and he put up about 350 yards rushing on me. So I know Preston Fox pretty well. And that's a great player. And I think for West Virginia fans, because I know there's a couple that listen, I love, and this is what I admire about West Virginia, is those high school football players love West Virginia so much, and they go back and play for the state, and you could see it. Preston Fox, I believe Preston Fox held the West Virginia flag running onto the field. Yeah. That's awesome stuff, man. And they took their lumps against Penn State. Again, that 6.5 over-under does scare me, but I still think if West Virginia could figure out a little bit of their defensive line, I still think this is a team that can make a strong run this year and win 8-9 games.
Yeah, and they're not going to face a defense of the caliber of Penn State the rest of the season.
True.
That's just a fact. So this is similar to Clemson. Don't read too much into this game. You still have a lot of season ahead of you, and there's still, a chance at winning the Big 12, I think. Yeah. If you're a West Virginia fan, just because of how good Penn State's defense is and the fact that, you kick off your season with a big test.
Yep.
So I agree with everything you said. Yeah, you have to figure some things out on the defensive line to protect that secondary, and they have to get the run game going a little bit better, but they should have more success against teams that aren't Penn State up front.
Yep. And RIP, last thing, RIP, the Neil Brown's goatee. It's apparently gone.
Probably for the best.
Yeah. We're moving on to Miami at Florida. Oh, man. Listen, Jay, when we look at betting lines, we look at spreads. We usually see a line that doesn't make sense, and we say, "Oh, that smells."
Yeah.
And we don't take the cheese because we're like, this looks too good to be true, and I don't trust this. This one, you should have taken it. Florida was only 2.5 point underdog against Miami, a team that was bringing a lot back, who has a dynamic quarterback in Cam Ward transferring in from Mizzou, and Miami.
Wazoo.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's my accent screwed me there. So, Wazoo. Anyway, the Hurricanes just had their way with the Gators in the swamp. I know it used to be the battle for the old canoe or something. They don't
Seminole War Canoe, I think.
It's Seminole War Canoe, which Florida State's not involved in, but Seminoles, Florida. Anyway, yeah, we know why that was getting. They got rid of that. But anyway, 41-17, the Hurricanes win. Miami looked good.
Yeah, Miami looked really good. Cam Ward looked fantastic, and Florida looked incompetent. You had all those things together. I will say, if there's a little spark of hope for Florida, Lagway looked good when he got in the game.
Yeah.
I think he looked better than Mertz. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Lagway starting moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Miami, I mean, a lot of weapons there offensively with Ward. His ability to get out of the pocket and scramble was impressive. Xavier Restrepo is just such a reliable receiver out there for the Hurricanes. So Miami easily looked the best of the ACC in week one.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you have to look at them. I was down on Miami. I think, week one overreactions, but I think I've turned around my opinion of the Hurricanes. I think they're going to be a problem this year. Billy Napier's in trouble, though. I don't know if you saw some of the stuff that he said in press conferences.
Yeah, and then he couldn't get the cap of the water bottle open. He was struggling with that water bottle. Yeah, Billy Napier's in trouble. And here's the problem. It doesn't get any easier. I think, do they have Samford next week? Who do they have next week?
I think Samford.
Okay, which they'll win, right? They have to.
Yeah, and Samford didn't look great. Just to bring in my FCS stuff here, Samford didn't look great against new FCS program West Georgia in week one. They kind of struggled there, but after
But you
that,
get
it's
after
A&M.
Yeah,
and then you
exactly.
have
You have A&M, and we're going to talk about A&M. But like, listen, A&M just played Notre Dame, and yes, they lost, and we're going to talk about that here soon. But like, who looked better at home, Florida or A&M?
I think A&M looked
A&M by
worlds
far.
better.
I'll answer. I know you have your own bias. Naturally, A&M looked way better.
Sorry, just to bring up a point, West Georgia did beat Samford in week 1.
Oh, they did.
So that's a massive win for West Georgia. Give them a little shout out here.
Okay,
not to get too distracted, but
no,
I think Florida is in a rough spot moving forward.
Yep.
You have a Central Florida game that's not going to be a walk in the park. You have Florida State to close out the season. You have Georgia. Like, I think this is the end of Billy Napier.
It might be.
And we said that going into the season, but this kind of speeds up the process a little bit in my mind.
And Central Florida is going to come for blood. Yeah. Like, Central Florida, to kind of paint a picture for the people who might not know, Central Florida is treated like the littlest of little brothers in the triplets of Miami, Florida State, and Florida. And then it's like your little cousin. It's like you have you and your two siblings, and then you have your little cousin. And Central Florida is the little cousin that kind of gets picked on. But we have seen little cousin sometimes, not little brother, little cousin sometimes beat you up.
Yeah.
And it's already happened to Florida once. It could happen again. But yeah, Billy Napier definitely in trouble.
Yep. Then we move on to Boise State and Georgia Southern, which for my money was the group of 5 game of the week. Just an absolute banger of a contest. Ginty is a monster. That was my big takeaway. I tweeted my Heisman frontrunners. I already mentioned McMillan earlier. Ginty was the other guy from week 1 where I was like, maybe we slide this guy on a Heisman watch list. Just
6 touchdowns.
Incredible. Incredible performance from him. Broke off a few huge runs. Boise State is going to be a problem in the Mountain West. We knew that going into the season. So I'm really come away with this game more impressed with Georgia Southern. I thought Georgia Southern looked great. I think that was my big takeaway. Obviously, some defensive issues they're going to have to shore up, particularly on the defensive line. But I don't think they'll see a rushing attack quite like Ginty the rest of the season. So, or at least not in conference play. So I like Georgia Southern quite a bit.
Yeah, and Ginty, 267 yards, 6 touchdowns. And yeah, he was a monster. But Jay, offensive line play, dominated. And yes, like Ginty was amazing, but I think you got to credit that offensive line too of Boise State. They are going to be an absolute force in the Mountain West. And yes, Boise State did put the Mountain West on notice with that win. However, Georgia Southern right there, that is again, they have to figure out defensively, but you put 45 up on Boise. That ain't nothing to sniff at. And I think we walked away, like you said, yeah, we already knew Boise State was good, but now I think we're walking away thinking, hey, Georgia Southern can run with him.
Yeah. Yeah, Georgia Southern is going to be, and we expected them to be a decent squad in the Sun Belt, but I think you really have pressed after the first week of the season. Doesn't get easy for the Georgia Southern moving forward. No. There's another team that we're going to talk about here in our other notes. Just kind of maybe a little bit of a surprise that they have next, but it's looking good for Georgia Southern. I think they'll be a force in the Sun Belt.
Absolutely. Jay, I'm going to let you kick this next one off. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Notre Dame comes off victorious 23-13. Jay, I'm going to leave the floor to you. Your thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we led into this game, we talked about whichever offensive line could get a little more success would probably determine how the game went because both of these defenses were just solid. I don't think we expected Connor Wigman to have as bad of a performance as he did. Just a really disappointing performance. He was never setting his feet on any of his throws, had 2 really bad interceptions, one where he overthrew 6'6" Noah Thomas. Didn't even give him a chance to make a play on the ball. Then threw one behind 6'6" tight end Theo Mellon-Orstrom. I think he's seeing ghosts from the Jimbo Fisher era where the offensive line just couldn't protect it all. I thought A&M's offensive line, while not great, probably not even good, was much improved. The bar was on the floor, and I thought, the offensive line actually did a half-decent job of protecting Wigman. I think they gave him at least a chance, but he couldn't get anything going. Defensively for the Aggies, they kind of gas out at the end. There was a few issues. I think the corners played a little bit soft at times, but that's just, trying to limit the big plays that hurt A&M last year. And I don't blame Elko for doing that. The more concerning aspect was gassing in the fourth quarter, which, to be fair to them, was partially because the offense was not staying on the field at all, and then losing contain on runs. I thought Notre Dame did a good job of getting outside. Notre Dame had some success with the outside zone, and I think A&M made an adjustment at halftime to kind of limit that. But then Notre Dame started running some pin pull stuff with Riley Leonard at the quarterback, and they started really having success there. And it's because A&M just couldn't set the edge. And that allowed Notre Dame to get down the field and eventually bust open a big run to seal the game. The offense needs work. I worry about the match of personnel with Wigman and Colin Klein's offense. I think you look at what Riley Leonard did running the ball, and I really think that's what Colin Klein wants out of his quarterback. And Wigman just doesn't have that function to his game. But theoretically, he was the better passing threat. We didn't see that on Saturday. We didn't see Wigman drop back and hit his throws because, again, he just never set his feet. So A&M has some soul searching to do offensively going forward, because as good as the defense is, if you leave them out there for as long as they did on Saturday, the defense is going to get tired. I will say that, again, I think the offensive line was much better. Armaj Reed-Adams in particular brought a little bit of nastiness to the A&M offensive line that's been missing these past few years. You lose your starting center in Mark Naboo for the season, but Khalifa Ayu, who came in as a Utah transfer, I think played well enough that it's not as much of a concern. You'd like to have depth, so losing your starter hurts. But again, they brought in depth to kind of help there. I do want to give a shout out to Tyler White, the punter for A&M, probably the brightest spot on the team, which is never a good sign. But he had punts of 64 and 65 yards. I think he leads the country in average punt distance now, like 54 yards or something like that. So that's a nice little piece to have, especially if your offense is struggling. But I think Colin Klein he's got some work to do to get the offense going in Aggie land. The good news for A&M is they have McNeese State next, so you kind of have chance to kind of get right. And we talked about how bad Florida looked, but that game on the road in the Swamp is still going to be a challenge. So you kind of figure out what you have this week. If Wigman is still not setting his feet on throws, I think you look down the depth chart at Marcel Reed or Jalen Henderson, just because they provide an element to the game that A&M doesn't have with Wigman at quarterback, and that I think Colin Klein would like to have in his offense, and that's the quarterback run, the designed quarterback runs. So we'll see what happens with A&M going forward, but not great. But again, you'll lose a close game to a top 10 team. It's not the end of the world, like some A&M fans are espousing online. As for Notre Dame, because I don't want to leave them out of this either, as strong as they looked, that defense is incredible. I mean, obviously we saw how they limited Caleb Williams, guys like that last year, and they returned 9 starters. So you expect them to be good. And I came away impressed with the offensive line for Notre Dame, because I think you look at the lack of experience there up front. That was a team, that was a unit that kind of matured before our eyes at Kyle Field in a very tough environment, extremely loud from everyone that I've spoken to. So hats off to Notre Dame. I think they have a good chance at, taking advantage of the rest of the season and finding their way in the playoff, because that is a good team. Some concerns with Leonard throwing the ball too. But again, if he's able to get the run going, that's an element that can help open up the pass a little bit. And I don't think Notre Dame faces a pass rush quite like A&M's for the rest of the season.
No, and like, I mean, everything you said was absolutely spot on. You know, we shared similar notes. Riley Leonard for Notre Dame did a good job with his legs, but is this going to work all year with him with the like running like this? And I don't think it's sustainable. I think it's good for like to get by. I think there are legitimate concerns with Riley Leonard in throwing the football. It's one of the first thing I noticed in this football game. I thought both defenses played very well. If my only nitpick, and you know, Jay, you beat me to it. I thought, as well as A&M played on defense, I thought they did a poor job at setting the edge. And Notre Dame was able to run, like you said, outside zone, and they were able to get to the outside, especially in the third. I think it was like in the late second, third quarter. They did adjust a bit, but still, I just think that Notre Dame, I think on offense, Notre Dame was able to scheme gritty plays like that to kind of get open. I do think A&M still I think A&M is better than what people think right now. I know everyone's going to be down on them. And Jay, I'm not saying that just to make you feel better. I do think this A&M team, can get to a good bowl game. I don't know if they're playoff yet with Elko, but I think they can win that. I think they can go 9-3. I think it'll be a tough road, but I think it's on the table.
Yeah, I think it's definitely on the table, especially when you look at the fact they don't have Alabama or Georgia on the schedule. Right. But you got to get better offensively, especially like LSU coming to town. Like I thought Nussmeier was pretty impressive, and we'll get into that in the next one. But there's some strides to be made offensively if you're going to have success. And again, I do worry about maybe it just being a mismatch in personnel where Colin Klein wants to run the quarterback a little bit more than what Weigman can give him.
Yeah. Last thing, Notre Dame, I did notice this. I love Marcus Freeman. I really do. And man, I think Notre Dame has this swagger to him that like I think was missing for a while. And I think Marcus Freeman is bringing that. He's a young, energetic coach who was a player himself, not for Notre Dame, but for Ohio State. And it looked fun. I mean, playing on both of these defenses, it looked fun. It looked big hits, like sound football. No, this was a very entertaining game. It did not go the way our Aggie listeners wanted it to end. But I think A&M still a good football team, and Notre Dame proves that they deserve in the top 10 to beat a ranked opponent on the road. So Notre Dame proving that, hey, this might be a different team.
Yep. And again, like if you're an A&M fan listening to this, remember that Notre Dame is a top 10 team. It's a tough test to open the season with a brand new offense, brand new head coach. So take a little bit of sauce in that. And if they don't make the offensive adjustments to get better, yes, you have a right to be upset, but have a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
Moving on to yesterday's games, to Sunday's game, USC and LSU, banger. Absolute classic of a football game. I thought Nussmeier and Miller Moss were both immensely impressive.
Great.
And before we dive into the game, Brian Kelly just fucking puts his foot in his mouth again at a press conference. Maybe it's not the biggest deal, but when you say their quarterback outplayed our quarterback, I thought Nussmeier did a great job all game.
I thought he was fine.
Yeah. And it may be true. Like I do think maybe Miller Moss played a little bit better than Nussmeier, but I just don't think you can say that as a head coach. I don't like throwing your players under the bus like that. Mm-hmm. It's disappointing. Mm-hmm. Again, like I'm not going to sit here and say Brian Kelly's not a good coach because he has obviously won everywhere he's been. But I just, it's frustrating.
It irks you, and
Yeah.
it should. I mean, you were a player at that level, and you don't want to hear your name being thrown across. Thrown
Especially
out
when
there
you
in-
have what I thought was a very good game by Nussmeier.
right.
He made some incredible throws.
Jay, here it is: 29 of 38, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns with an interception.
And that interception came at the end of the game. Obviously,
Right.
not a great throw there, but
And Miller Moss, 27 of 36, 378 yards and a touchdown. So comparable.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? 70 yards? We're talking about what, 2 or 3 passes? Is that what we're talking about here? I thought Nussmeier was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine.
But the big story for me was USC's defense just took a massive step forward. Do you agree?
Yeah, big time. I think they put the rest of the Big Ten on notice of, we are a new team with a new culture, and you better be ready.
Yeah.
USC put a notice to the Big Ten last night or 2 nights ago that, hey, you better come to play, because this is a brand new team. This game was not what we expected either. We thought shootout, and both these defenses I thought played decently well. Danton Lynn, I think he fixed USC.
We'll see. There will be tests coming later in the season, but this LSU offense is still very good.
Yep.
And obviously you give up a lot of yards, but overall I thought it was a good performance, and I don't think you're going to have offenses quite as good as this LSU offense.
Nope.
And I don't want to discount like Dylan Gabriel in Oregon. I think they're going to be solid. I don't have USC's schedule in front of me, but it's going to be fun to watch this defense continue to develop, because I think they will for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, again, stop playing neutral site games.
Yep. And Jay, here's USC's schedule. Again, USC doesn't have to have a big time defense. They just have to have a decent one. They need to have an average one. I think they did. I think they show that they might be better than that. But in the Big Ten, it's ground and pound. Okay, you're gonna have good defenses, but you're not gonna have these crazy air raid offenses. Some of these teams, okay, Utah State, Michigan, who's replacing everyone on offense. Okay, they're running a lot more read than they did last year, but that's a whole new offense. Wisconsin, average offense. Minnesota, average offense. Listen, you're looking here. The best offense they might play this year might be Penn State. And we've seen Penn State lay eggs before on offense. So USC's defense doesn't have to be elite. It has to be good enough. And with the schedule they have in front of them, they also have we can't forget they also have Notre Dame. Okay. But like Notre Dame and Penn State, those are probably your 2 best offenses you play this year. 2 offenses that aren't going to exactly light up the scoreboard.
No.
Are they good? Yes. But they're not run and gun. They're not Ohio State. They're not Oregon.
Yeah.
So USC has a favorable schedule when it comes to that. But no, big win for the USC Trojans. I think USC fans are now like, okay, I think we might be back to normal.
Yeah.
Like, I think things are okay now. So yeah, any other thoughts on that one?
No, just a good performance by USC, and for LSU fans, like, same thing we've said for multiple programs already. Still a lot of football left to play. No shame in losing to a good USC team. I think LSU is going to be a problem for everybody going forward. I still think that offense is extremely talented. Mason Taylor at tight end too. We didn't really talk about him. He is a very, very good offensive weapon there for LSU.
Yep. Moving on. Last night's game, Boston College at Florida State. We are recording right before the kickoff.
We're recording on Labor Day. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're recording on Labor Day, which I guess defeats the purpose of Labor Day. But anyway, sue us. So we have Boston College at Florida State. Florida State is a 16.5-point favorite. Listen, Jay, it's nice. I'm not big on college football games on Mondays. However, if there's no NFL, you might as well throw it on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of like these early season games where we get to see college football on days that aren't normally college football days. Going to be interesting to see how Bill O'Brien fares in his debut. Going to be interesting to see how Florida State bounces back after a disappointing start to the season in Dublin, Ireland. I think Florida State rolls in this one. I think they're going to be angry. But, I mean, we thought they were going to be angry to start the season, right? It was the whole revenge tour thing. So this one could get interesting. The good news for Florida State is they are at home, which I think will give them a little bit of advantage. But I think we'll see a little bit more out of Florida State this week or tonight, technically, I guess. Yesterday, if you're listening this tomorrow. I mean, time is a flat circle, whatever.
I think I want to lay Boston College plus 16.5.
That's fair.
I think it's too much. And I think it's too much. And with new coach Bill O'Brien, I think he's going to have a couple tricks up his sleeve. I know you being from the Houston area have a lot different of an outlook on Bill O'Brien than I do. But I do think Bill O'Brien is a good offensive mind. I think he's going to be able to scheme a little bit with Boston College. And I think they at least keep this under 17. Florida State wins, though.
Yeah. I think Boston College will be tougher than they have been in the past. But, yeah, I also agree. Florida State wins.
Yeah. Now, some notables, Jay. So we have some notables here, some footnotes. Nevada won again. Were we just completely wrong on the because listen, Jay.
Well, they lost to SMU in week 1, but it was a very close game, or week 0.
Right.
They beat Troy, who is a very good, very solid Sun Belt program. I know they have a new coach. I know they lose. I know they lost their head coach to Tulane, but still a very impressive performance for Nevada.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be very impressed with them. They get tested again, though, in week 2. They have Georgia Southern coming to town. So that'll be a really, really fun matchup. Kind of hinted at that with Georgia Southern having another test. But getting them at home is big, right? We saw, like, McKay Stadium, gym, underrated.
Oh, very underrated.
But yeah, I think we were wrong about Nevada. I think we expected Jeff Choate to do a good job up there, but I think we thought it would take a little bit longer to rebuild. This makes the Fremont Cannon game later in the season against UNLV very interesting. Because Nevada looks good.
Yep. No, they do, man. And like the thing is, Jay, you and I usually aren't that negative on this show. We're very much more positive, and it's more what can teams do to improve. Or, what can teams look for? So we're usually not negative. And, it's funny. We kind of looked at Nevada and we were kind of like, this team might be bad. Like this team might be one of the worst teams in college football this year. And they're rattled off 2-0. So the Wolfpack, things are nice. Things are nice here.
1-1. They had the loss to us.
Oh, yeah. Shoot. I forgot. 1-1.
It felt like a win just because
it did felt like a win because how well they
and they should have won that game, to be fair.
They should have. And then next, a little Texas on Texas crime here. Sam Houston destroys Rice. The Bearcat, are they starting to work their way up through the pecking order of college football?
Well, you got to remember, right? Like this is a team that won a national championship not that long ago at the FCS level. Yeah. They did not fare well last year in their first year in the FBS, but they were hurt all year. They also lost a lot of close games. I think early in the season they played Air Force in Houston, and that game was like a 13-3 game. So there were some things to take away last year. I mean, they played an absolute classic against Jacksonville State where they were up early and then kind of let Jacksonville State come back and win. But now it seems like they're healthy. They get Hunter Watson in, who played in the JUCO National Championship last year. This coaching staff was really excited about him in the offseason. And he came out and played extremely well against Rice. And Sam Houston State just kind of took it to him. The other piece of it is I think there's an opening for Sam Houston State in the Conference USA to win a bunch of games.
Yep.
Right? Like this still feels like it's Liberty's conference to win. but like I expect Sam Houston State to be pretty good now that they've have that big win over Rice. There's going to be some challenging games on that schedule, but if they can stay healthy, they could be like a last year's Jacksonville State. They could be like a last year's New Mexico State, where they just kind of surprise people, string together some wins. I think a lot of their games last year were like one-score losses. So if you're healthy and you have a quarterback that you trust, that can go a long way, especially in Conference USA.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's Sam Houston coming back a little bit, or I guess kind of making a name for themselves more. But yeah, it's still Liberty's conference to lose, but I do like that there might be a little resistance there for the wonderful Liberty Flames. Jay, we're going to go into our preview now. Friday night, BYU at SMU. SMU is an 11-point favorite, over under set at 55.5. Listen, BYU 1-0 beat the Southern Illinois Salukis. SMU 2, they won again, correct?
Yes, they did.
Yes, so the 2-0.
Yeah, I'd have to look up who they play. Well, let me make sure they played, because right, it could have
maybe they were on a bye. Here's the thing: over under set at 55.5. I think that is your safe bet there. Not sure if I trust both these defenses. Again, 11 is a lot of points. To lay.
Yeah.
I think the over at 55.5 is probably the play here.
Yeah. So SMU did win in week 1 against Houston Christian.
Right.
So I mean, that was a game that happened. Classic ACC versus Big 12 matchup, like we all remember, right?
Right.
SMU and BYU. I also like your pick of the over, but I'm going to take BYU plus 11, just because I think that's a super wide line. And I'm not, again, we talk about Nevada improving, but at the same time, like, not impressed with what we saw out of SMU so far. Maybe the quarterback, position, because you can't read too much into a Houston Christian 59-7 win. Like, you just can't.
No.
It'll be interesting to see this, though. This is a Power 5 matchup, technically.
It is.
So,
Love it.
It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. But I like BYU to cover plus 11, just because it's a lot of points, and then I like the over.
Yep. Moving on. Also Friday, Duke at Northwestern. Northwestern 3-point favorite. Over under is at 39. Before I tell you my pick, Jay, I think I've said it before. I have come all the way around on Northwestern's temporary stadium again. So Northwestern is moving. They demolished old Ryan Field. Now they're going to put up new Ryan Field. Northwestern needs a place to play, and they set up like bleachers on Lake Michigan. And at first, I was like, this looks dumb. This looks like a small, like, it just did not look like a team, like somewhere a Big Ten team would play. I have went from totally laughing at it to, okay, I think this will work, to then this definitely works, and I'm kind of upset it's going to leave us in 2 years. I love this stadium.
Yeah, it's not the size of what you would expect from a Power 5 program, but it is so much fun to see that. You have the scenic views of Lake Michigan as a backdrop. It is a really cool little temporary stadium. It's going to be miserable come winter, come the late season games, but I love it too. This is going to be a fun matchup with Duke. I think Duke, looked pretty good in week 1 under Manny Diaz. It's tough to read into this because like both of these teams played FCS programs, but I think we'll find out a lot about both teams in week 2. I am not putting too much on this game because I still don't know what to expect from either team yet.
Well, here's the thing, Jay. Northwestern actually played Miami of Ohio.
Oh, right. My bad.
No, you're fine.
Well, I feel bad for the Miami of Ohio fans who may be listening.
Here's the thing. Miami of Ohio, good MAC team.
Yeah.
Might win the MAC. So here's the thing. Northwestern -3, over under set at 39. Jay, I'm going to pair it, single game parlay, under 39, and then we are taking Northwestern -3. Listen, Duke is going to take some lumps this year. Okay, I feel really bad for Manny Diaz. However, Manny Diaz is going to have a good defensive plan for Northwestern, a team he's familiar with. when he was at Penn State. So I'm taking under 39. This game's going to be ugly. It's going to be very sickos. Our friends at the sickos committee. This is going to be sickos warning here. And then I do like Northwestern to win this and cover the spread.
Yeah.
Saturday.
We kick it off with a SEC Big Ten matchup. Just like we always knew it would be. Texas at Michigan. Shades of the old Rose Bowl, where Vince Young kind of had like a coming out party back in the day. This should be a fun one, but I don't have a lot of faith in Michigan. I think it's a bad matchup for them. I think they're going to struggle with the skill positions of Texas. As much as it pains me to say, I think Texas rolls here. I think I'm going to take Texas -7, and I like the Longhorns. The one thing I will say is I think Michigan, offensively, their most success against Fresno State was running up the middle. That may be the one part of Texas that is very susceptible, just because they're replacing Sweat and those guys in the interior from last year. That Michigan could have some success running the ball at the middle, but I like Texas in this one.
I also like Texas. Sorry, Michigan people. I know there's a good collection of you that listen. Sorry. I think Texas wins this game. I think Michigan is just replacing too much. And yes, it worked against Fresno State and you got out of there with a win. I think, listen, Michigan, a 7-point underdog at home. I think a lot of people are going to be saying, hey, we're going to put money on Michigan. They'll keep it within a touchdown. And I think Texas is going to smoke them. Yeah. So I'm taking Longhorns -7 in this one. Jay, we have a friend of this program, Jeffrey the Greek. Okay. Jeff has always said no one cares about the Cy-Hawk trophy.
Elastico.
Yes. We care about the Cy-Hawk trophy.
We do.
We love the Cy-Hawk trophy. And here's the thing: Iowa State at Iowa. Here, Iowa again offensively looked better. 2.5 home favorite, over under set of 36. It's Iowa State. We got to take under, right? To start.
Yeah, we're taking the under. We're hammering that under.
We have to take the under. Over the offseason, I was big on Iowa. I think, I'm like, and I love Iowa. I think they are, great program. Always kind of in the thick of things, always a tough game, weird things, voodoo magic at Kinnick Stadium. But when I started to deep dive Iowa State, I found that they return a lot of production. And you know me, I love talking production numbers. I am not betting with the spread here. I am going to take the under. I believe Iowa is going to get a edge because it's at Kinnick. And I think Iowa wins a close game, but I'm not confident enough to bet it. I'm way more confident in the under, and I think that's where you go with it.
Yep, going to be a defensive slugfest, a rock fight, a knife fight, whatever you want to call it. Take the under at 36. Going to be a fun one for me as a defensive football appreciator. But Elastico is Elastico. I love this game. If you're looking for a high-flying offense scoring a ton of points, this ain't for you.
Nope.
No shame in that, but we will be tuned into it. How weird is it going to be that this game is the Big Ten CBS game?
Where's it going to be?
CBS. On CBS. Yeah. So like not SEC CBS anymore.
No, it's at Iowa.
Yeah. But I'm saying like this is on the CBS television. You're going to have the intro for college football on CBS leading into an Iowa football game. How weird is that going to be?
It's going to be really weird. I mean, I think we got it. I think Penn State had a CBS game last year. Whereas
No, I think this is the first year.
Is this the first one?
Yeah.
No way. That is going to be weird. Going to CBS.
Maybe they had one last week, but I don't remember it.
So. Yeah. CBS and then going into Kinnick.
Wild.
That music. Yes. Definitely going to have to get it. Definitely have to get used to that. Here's one a little under the radar game: Arkansas at or Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, by the way, just pounded South Dakota State, which the old FCS champ. Not a caught me by surprise. I think it caught you by surprise too. How bad it was. Oklahoma State 7.5 point favorites. Over under set at 60.5. I'm not buying Arkansas anymore. I am leaning Oklahoma State minus 7.5.
Yeah, we talk about the Oklahoma State slow starts to the season. We didn't get that against South Dakota State. We got a Oklahoma State program that came out like they have something to prove. So this is another one like Miami. I was out on this program. I think I'm all the way back in now. I also like Oklahoma State minus 7.5. I think the Cowboys are going to be a force in 2024 after what we just saw.
Absolutely. Next up, Kansas at Illinois. Illinois 5.5 point dog at home. Over under 55.5. So I like Kansas to cover in Illinois. Again, I'm not high on Illinois. I said on the Big Ten preview. I know that's not a popular take. However, I think Kansas has more offensively, and I'm definitely leaning Jayhawks minus 5.5. But I'm also thinking over. I'm also thinking over 5.5 because Illinois does have some good receivers. Altmaier looked better. So I'm liking Kansas. I don't know what my official plays will be, but I like Kansas minus the 5.5, but I like over 5 or 55.5.
Yeah, I'm taking Kansas because of Daniels. I just think they're going to be better offensively. I think they handle business. I'm staying away from the over-under just because I don't trust Illinois offensively enough. Mm-hmm. I think they could get there, especially because I think Kansas's defense isn't going to be great. But I don't feel strongly enough about Illinois' offense to lay anything on that. It's just Kansas plus 5.5 for me. I think it's going to be a big game for that Kansas offense on the road in Champaign.
Yeah. Next up, big matchup here. UTSA at Texas State. Bobcats 1.5 point favorites. Over under set at 61.5. Jay, I want you to lead this off because this is right in this is your backyard here.
Yeah. So our boys from the Group of Five. The Group of Five guys will be hosting a tailgate, I believe, in San Marvelous for this game. Listen, there's a lot of storylines between these two teams. You have Jeff Traylor, who coached G.J. Kinney in high school in Gilmer, Texas, East Texas. Obviously, G.J. Kinney, the head coach for Texas State. Jeff Traylor, the head coach for UTSA. These programs are separated by less than an hour drive time. So there's some bad blood there. Texas State fans I've talked to are absolutely fired up. They are fired the hell up about this. Probably going to be a sellout crowd there in San Marcos. Going to be a couple of fun offenses. I think this is going to be a really fun game. Obviously, no Frank Harris this year for UTSA, so they're going to be missing him. Jordan McLeod is the quarterback now from James Madison. He's now at Texas State. Both of these teams kind of struggled in week one. UTSA with Kennesaw State. Texas State kind of let Lamar hang around. Not a great sign, but I think both of these programs are also looking forward to this week because this has been, other than Texas and Texas A&M, the most talked about in-state game in the Lone Star State this offseason. Both of these teams are just fired up for this one. Texas State hasn't beaten UTSA yet. And they have this one circled because this is going to be as good of a chance as they had with the talent on their roster to make a statement by beating the Roadrunners. With that being said, no idea what to expect. I think this is one of those rivalry games where anything can happen, even if it's not as well known nationally, and even if UTSA fans would say, well, Texas State hasn't beaten us, so it's not a rivalry. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I would probably take the over at 61.5 looking at this game. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one in San Marcos. Tune into this one if you can, because these two teams, there's going to be some bad blood there. I know G.J. Kinney and Jeff Traylor have a deep appreciation for each other. So the bad blood isn't stemming from the coaching, but you can bet they want to beat each other. It's
Yeah.
just the competitiveness of the nature of this game. So
Mhm.
going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to watch this one.
Yeah, I'll be including this on my watch list guide, definitely. I think Texas State gets it done. Again, UTSA had to replace Frank Harris early in the season. I like Texas State. And like you said, Jay, I think I like the over even more at 61.5. Tennessee takes on NC State, SEC, ACC challenge here. North Carolina State, the Wolfpack are getting 7.5, over under 64.5. Jay, I think Tennessee beats the bricks off them.
I don't want to read too much into North Carolina State's struggles with Western Carolina in week 1, but it's not a good look for the Wolfpack. With that being said, I think Grayson McCall kind of didn't look like himself at the start of that game. I think he's going to fare a little bit better. Unfortunately, I just think Tennessee's a wagon. I think they're going to be a very good team this year. Nico Amalivo, you don't want to read too much into Tennessee's win over Chattanooga, just like you don't want to read too much into a week 1 struggle the other way. But Tennessee just has the weapons. I think it's NC State defensively is going to struggle. I just don't think they're going to be able to slow down the balls. I like Tennessee in this one too.
Yeah. Yeah, that game against who did NC State play again?
Oh, Western Carolina.
Western Carolina. Yeah, Tennessee I think has way too much on offense and defensive line.
Yeah,
the defensive line is good.
The pass rushers are so good.
And Jay, you know how much I hate them, but dude, they're good. This is a very good football team, and I think they go into Raleigh and just destroy.
Well, this one's in Charlotte. This is the Duke.
Oh God!
No, but it's Dukes, so it's okay.
Dukes.
You know,
yes,
we're making an exception for this one.
Yes, we're making an exception for Dukes. Dukes, but yeah,
official condiment of the pod.
Official condiment. Yeah, I think Tennessee kills them. Yep, they beat them. Next up, App State at Clemson. App State is getting 17.5.
App State covers. They might win outright.
Whoa. What?
It's App State. That's what they do. At least that's what I'm telling myself after losing to them
yes.
In 2022.
Yes. So how about this? If you really want to feel frisky, take a money line. I think App State plus 17.5, that was a way to go. Just because Clemson's offense, I don't think is going to be able to just do that over and over and over again. Yeah. Okay, so App State plus 17.5, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
App State plus 17.5 is the smart play. But maybe sprinkle a little money on. Maybe a little sprinkle.
If you're feeling frisky.
If you
got a little bit. Next up, I feel like this one is going under the radar here. This should be a Big 12 conference game, but it's not because the Big 12 won't take them. But Texas Tech travels to Wazoo.
Mike Leach legacy game.
Yeah, the Mike Leach. Look at that. Washington State is getting 1.5. Over under set at 65.5. Over 65.5.
And to Abilene Christian. So take the over.
Take the over.
I think Washington State put up 70. It was either them or Oregon State that put up 70.
I thought it was like 50.
No, one of them put up 70. I'm almost 100% sure.
It was Washington State. Let's take a look. Pull that up.
Yeah, pull it up, young Jamie.
Washington State. Oh yeah, they did 70-30. Washington State put up 70, gave up 30 to Portland State. Oh, over.
Yeah,
we're hammering the over. We're hammering the over here. Oh yeah, hammering that over. Next, probably the premier game here. Colorado at Nebraska. Nebraska 7-point favorites at home, over under 57.5. Jay, it's the Cornhuskers are going to exercise some demons in this one.
Yep.
Okay.
Dylan Raiola looked like the real deal against the Utah.
He looked like
he made some incredible throws.
Made some great throws. Listen, Colorado against North Dakota State wasn't able to stop them on the ground, or at least struggled to stop them on the ground. Nebraska, you're going to have better players, more physical players. Shedeur Sanders better learn how to throw when the receiver isn't looking, because you are not going to have enough time to throw the football.
Nope.
And listen, last year, the only reason why Nebraska lost is because they had a traffic cone as a quarterback. That is not going to happen here. Raiola is going to lead this team, and the Cornhuskers are going to exercise the demons. Nebraska -7.
Nebraska by 2 touchdowns or more.
There we go.
Opinion. I'm also on the Huskers. I think they've improved so much. I think Raiola is the real deal, like I just said. And this crowd in Lincoln is going to be fired up for this one. This is a rivalry game. People forget, going back to the Big 8, Big 12 days. Like, these two programs do not like each other one bit. And I think Nebraska is going to want to get one over on Deion pretty heavily. So I like Nebraska to win this one.
Yep, absolutely. Now, Jay, let's move on to your FCS Minute.
We haven't done the FCS Minute this year yet, but we have a banger of a contest coming up. The number 4 FCS team against the number 23 FCS team. Montana, the Grizzlies, coming off of a win against Missouri State. They take on North Dakota, who gave Iowa State a pretty dang good fight last week. This is going to be a fun one. Definitely want to make sure you tune in, and that is your FCS Minute. And I think I managed to keep it under a minute this year.
Oh, you definitely did. Definitely did. Wow, that was a nice listen. We're at an hour and 10 minutes. Perfect. Absolute perfect podcasting. Jay, but you have something that you need to share with everybody else.
Yeah. So if you're not paying attention to the Twitter feed, it's September. I turned 30 September 28th. It's my birthday month. So with that, last year we kicked off the tradition of the Send Jay Away fundraiser. We raised $11,000 for food banks around the country last year. It's probably my greatest accomplishment in life. Stephen F. Austin raised the most. I think they were over 4,000. So I also went to a game in Nacogdoches last year to honor that. We're keeping the stakes the same this year, but we're upping it a little bit. If we go over 12,000, which is my goal, I will also get a tattoo of whatever school donates the most money, in addition to going to a game at that place. So let's say, somehow the Longhorns managed to donate the most money, I'd get a Longhorn tattoo. So the stakes are high here. If you want to participate in the Send Jay Away fundraiser, all you have to do is donate to a food bank of your choice. Send me a screenshot of the receipt, block out all the personal details. Send me a screenshot of the receipt so that I can add it to the list. And make sure you let me know your school allegiance as well, so that we can keep track of that. It's for a good cause. I don't touch any of the money. You donate directly to the food bank. Don't send me money. Donate to the food bank. I don't want to be responsible for it. I just keep track of the goals. But it's a good cause. I really appreciate y'all helping out. And that's pretty much the episode. So now I'm going to try to land this plane successfully once again. As always, we grow as a podcast by y'all sharing, by y'all liking, by y'all subscribing. We can't do this without y'all. So we appreciate each one of you who listens. It's a massive slate of games once again. And we appreciate everything that y'all do for us. And we can't wait to see what happens on the football field on Saturday.
Absolutely beautiful. From all of us at the Get Back Coach, have a great week.